Welcome back to the non-neutral zone. Took us a little week off, and we're back there. Ian, how's it going, man? Did you have a good week?
I did, yeah. It was a good week. Holiday season is upon us, so I think we both needed some time to get our family in order.
Oh yeah, a little time with the family. We did some tree decorating and whatnot. So I think you guys got your decorations out and about, right?
Yeah, pretty much done now. There's some 20-foot lights I got to hang, so I'm really looking forward to that. But
Hmm. You guys do a palm tree?
yeah, I'm not doing that. We've got some pillars around front of our house, so I'm gonna be doing those. But
Okay. You guys do a Christmas tree inside though, for real, for real?
that yes, we do a real one too.
Oh, a real one.
Yep.
Nice. Like a Fraser fir.
Yeah, Douglas or Fraser. I don't know which one it was.
Hopefully it's
Some
a
tree
Fraser.
from Carolinas.
Yeah, probably a Fraser. How tall is it?
I think it's 7.5 feet.
Oh, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, perfect.
We've always done a real tree, always my entire life. And my wife, we've been married for 8 years. And for 8 years, she has needled me, no pun intended, on wanting an artificial tree to eliminate some of the mess during the holiday season, right? She doesn't like cleaning up the pine needles.
Ah.
Oh, well, guess what? We got that old artificial tree. Now she gets to clean up glitter. What do you know? So, yeah, and guess what you can't clean up very well? Glitter.
Glitter. Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, with that being said, let's move out of our home decor and into some news from football this week. We got pretty abbreviated news schedule here. Everything was kind of good to us. We could have been loaded up last week if we hadn't taken a week. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Last week was hectic.
yeah, I really don't like covering all the bad stuff all the time, though. So it's fine. We'll hit about 5 or 6 little news points here, and then we'll move into some football talk. It's going to be great.
Yeah. We'll
You want to
get
get us
into
going
that
there in the
going
news,
forward.
Ian?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, you want to talk about some good news. So for a lot of people out there, Christian McCaffrey looks like he could be good after the bye. They're non-committal, but I think that's just you would expect that, a little bit of apprehension just to be safe. Don't want to give the other teams too much information either, typically, but it sounds like he should be good to go this coming week. So
Yeah, a
yeah,
little bit of gamesmanship, like you said, most likely. But Christian McCaffrey seemed pretty. He seemed to feel like he felt okay at least. So
yeah, and I mean, obviously we're all football fans, so I love to see him play. I don't love to play against him, but I love to see him play football. So it's good for football. It's good for fantasy football. I hope that he doesn't get it re-injured, and if there's any risk of that, you would hope that they would be more cautious. But like you said off air, he's a competitor. He wants to be on the field, and
yeah.
he's going to push it.
Well, let's just say for a minute. I just want to get your opinion. Let's just say for a minute he doesn't play another game this year. They shut him down just because they're out of the playoffs. They've been eliminated. Does it affect his draft stock in fantasy football next year?
I
Is
don't
he
think
still
so.
the 101? That's the question.
I think he has to be. Perhaps that could be an argument for Alvin Kamara again this year, next year, just showing how productive he was this year, especially with obviously a little bit less without Drew Brees, but even this week he had a good week. So there could be an argument there for Kamara, but
It's
I think he's definitely
one run this week for Kamara. Otherwise, he was trash.
well, yeah, but it's just all you need really. But yeah, I think he's still going to be in the conversation just because the games he has played this year, he's been excellent. He's been the best out there. So
I think it'll be Dalvin Cook.
yeah, Dalvin Cook for sure will be in the conversation as well.
I think I
I,
would still go Christian McCaffrey just because of health, but I do think that Dalvin Cook may be the consensus among experts.
I think he has a much better situation around him too, as far as they scheme it for him.
Mm.
But yeah, it's going to be. I think that McCaffrey's going to be in the conversation, but it's just going to be a little bit more blurred, perhaps, than it was this year.
Yeah, you could be right there. Some more good news. Carson Wentz was benched for Jalen Hurts this week and a loss to Green Bay. It's not good news for Carson, but seemed to be good news for the Eagles. They really made a push at the end of that game.
Yeah, I mean, we all know Jalen Hurts is a talent, so it'd be interesting to see how it translates if he's given time. I don't think. I mean, it's just a difficult situation for Wentz. I don't think it's fully Wentz's fault, but he's certainly not helped himself. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the offensive line, but Jalen Hurts brings an element to the game that Carson Wentz doesn't after the knee surgeries and the health issues that he's had. I feel like he was a little bit more mobile, but now, I mean, Hurts was a more mobile quarterback if you compared them in their, both at the same age. When Wentz was Hurts' age and fully healthy, he wasn't anywhere near as mobile as what Hurts is. That gives the offensive line a lot more leniency with their talent.
yeah, no, I agree. And that we're seeing that trend in the professional game now where they all seem to be sort of favoring college style quarterbacks, if you like, where they can run and pass. And likes of Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, etc. So I agree with that take. But Wentz has obviously lost a yard or two with all the injuries he's had, unfortunately, and his arm talent apparently is not holding him up, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if Wentz could get behind a great offensive line, like maybe in Indianapolis, I think he could be a lot better suited. And
Yeah,
maybe and his time there with Frank Reich when Frank was in Philadelphia probably wouldn't hurt things either. He's very familiar with that scheme.
yeah. I've certainly heard murmurs of him moving on, and I think Indy would be a good landing spot. Give Eason one more year, maybe to learn, and I think you could probably get Wentz on a 1 year, 2 year deal, pretty cheap.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look at the NFC East, how bad it's been, and Carson Wentz hadn't really been able to put the Eagles in the driver's seat. So I think he's going to be cheap in the offseason if that's the way they end up deciding to go. And I think it will be. I think we saw, in this week's game against Green Bay when they went away from him, you can't take a starter of a game like that and not have plans to do so in the future.
Yep.
So, and I love Jacob Eason for the record. What a great quarterback. But
Yeah, no, I think it would be a good. I think it would be a good move, and I think it could help Jonathan Taylor as well because
dude, he
I think
broke
we
out.
agree
He
that
broke out this week finally.
wow, and the week prior, yeah, he looks good, but I think having a better quarterback under center will help him because you can't then commit to the run. So
Yep, I agree.
yeah,
T.Y. Hilton playing well has really helped him as well. But let's not make this about Jonathan Taylor. We can move on to
yeah,
DJ Moore.
yeah. Unfortunately, he obviously had an ankle injury before the bye. It came up with positive news as far as it didn't seem to be any breaks or ligament damage. However, he's now popped up on the COVID reserve list. So a little interesting. I'm not sure exactly what that why that happened, but there's been a lot of that with guys coming off of injuries. New England have used it a couple times where they have guys who move to that position without actually testing positive. So I don't know.
Yeah, man, I'm, to be completely honest, just really tired of trying to keep up with the COVID list on the NFL. Um, we need to as a show. It's something that people want to hear about and know who's on there and who's off of it. But it's impossible to keep up with from day to day. Like you just have to be on your phone and get those updates from Sleeper or from
Yeah,
the whatever Fantasy Life app from Matthew Berry or any source you want to listen to, Fantasy Pros. Those guys are going to keep you posted on that, and you need to know. But geez, oh, Lou, like let's just talk about it some more. COVID list. Ugh.
yeah, it's pain for sure. It's a pain.
Yeah, sorry. Ugh. Makes me sick. DJ Moore, get healthy, buddy. Um,
Yeah,
we'll find out if he's got the COVID or not. So
hopefully not. Hopefully not because he's actually started to play some good football towards the end of the year and what we've been expecting. But it is what it is.
yeah.
Hopefully he's healthy. One last piece of news. I think obviously there was a pretty feisty game between the Bengals and the Dolphins
Oh, we got
this
two pieces.
weekend.
We got two pieces of news.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, go for it though.
But starting with the Bengals and Dolphins, big old brawl. Earlier in the game was Xavier Rhodes and Tyler Boyd, I believe, both got ejected. I think that was in the second quarter, and then the end of the game in the fourth quarter, there was several others, including Devontae Parker, who also got ejected. But from what I understand, I don't think it's going to go past that. There's no suspensions talked about. At least I haven't seen any yet. So I don't think it's going to affect the ability to play these guys next week.
Yeah. One of the funniest things that I saw, the fallout there from that Dolphins Bengals brawl, was someone said the offensive line doing what they always do, not protecting anyone. And it shows like the Bengals offensive line just chilling on the bench, like just watching the whole thing, not even looking excited. Like they're sitting up there chilling. And I thought that was hilarious. But yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember who was the wide receiver from Houston that got ejected. Xavier Rhodes got ejected for the Colts, and there was a wide receiver from Houston that got ejected. And I can't remember which one it was. Um, it might have been
Oh, this
Brandon.
weekend?
Yeah, it was this weekend. It might have been Brandon Cooks. I can't remember, but I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Cooks went out with a concussion, so I know that, but he came back into the game.
Yeah, I can't remember. Xavier Rhodes and one of the wide receivers from Houston, they got into it. But what I was trying to get to was we finally saw Kiki Kuti get to break out. Like, man, he's so talented. And he was
Yeah.
smothered by, the what's his name there, the coach,
Oh, Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien. Man, he killed him because Kiki Kuti couldn't stay healthy, and he came out and said like it was frustrating to him, and so he buried him on the depth chart. Like, come on now, the guy can't help injuries. You're going to let Will Fuller continue to go out there as your wide receiver one, but you're not going to let Kiki Kuti man the slot where I think he had like 15 or 16 catches one game against the Colts a couple of years ago. But you're just going to say, well, he can't stay healthy. I don't like him,
Yeah.
and that's why you're not a coach anymore, Bill.
Yeah, because like you said, Will Fuller is not exactly renowned for his longevity in terms of health. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was good to
have on the outside with usually Will Fuller. He's gone because he doesn't know how to, not juice. But
take meds. Yeah,
Brandon Cooks,
yeah,
fast as well. You need a guy like that. I mean, they have uh, Cobb, Randall Cobb, but I mean, he's 30. Was he 31?
yeah. He's getting on a bit now.
Yeah,
But
Kiki
he's a
Kutsu's
good
young.
piece, but he's not the guy that you want to have to rely on week in, week out.
Yeah, quarterback out of Kentucky. So,
Yeah, yeah.
one last piece of news: we got Antonio Gibson. He injured his toe in the first quarter on Monday afternoon's game against Pittsburgh. He did not come back. 14 yards rushing. That was it. So
Yeah, I haven't seen what it was, but whenever it's toe, you assume turf toe, which can be lingering. It can be a lingering injury, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending upon the severity. So
fire up your Peyton Barber.
yeah, yeah, it's a shame. He obviously had a heck of a game on Thanksgiving, and a lot of guys probably were looking to ride him to the championship, or at least in the postseason, anyways. But
Who was that they were playing on Thanksgiving? Washington played
Dallas,
Dallas. Oh
yep,
yeah, that's a real
yep.
formidable opponent. So with that being said, that wraps the news for us. We're gonna talk about a few different MVPs and players of the year type things here. It's more real life football, but we're gonna hit the fantasy MVP there at the end. Got a few guys listed here as potential winners of the NFL MVP. So the NFL of the league. I had Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes, and you threw out a few interesting names: Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, and Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I just think that I know that the quarterback position is very, very important.
Yeah,
However, it seems to be almost like a 10% advantage on your performance. If you're a quarterback, you almost get a guaranteed chance at the MVP if you have a good season. I mean, Travis Kelce's, I think he has the most yards of any receiver in the league, and he's not even talked about. Obviously, you just talked about Dalvin Cook, I believe. I know it was off air, but Dalvin Cook's having an incredible season, and Devontae Adams, outside of the 2 games he missed, is on pace for like 135 catches, 1,500 yards, and like 18 TDs, something ridiculous. So, and they're not even talked about as far as MVP races. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is probably going to win it. He's having an amazing season, but I just think that these guys, they should at least be in a conversation.
um, I think they can be in the conversation, but pretty sure the last non-quarterback to win it was 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson's. So 14 years ago.
I think Adrian Peterson won it. No. when he got his 2,000-yard rushing season.
What year was that? Do you know?
Uh,
Let's
Not
see.
off the top of
Hold
my
on,
head.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I mean, the either way, I like what you're saying, but I don't think
2012. That's one.
2012. So eight years ago, and he had a 2,000 rushing yard season. So I don't see any way that any of those three guys win it. Travis Kelce and Devontae Adams are tied to those two quarterbacks. Dalvin
Yeah.
Cook's not going to win it because they're not going to win that division. Like are they even going to make the playoffs? I don't think so. Probably not. But I think the
Probably not.
wild card's coming out of the NFC West. Um, I just don't see. I don't see any way other. You're probably right. Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes could win it because he's got a flashy game as well. Um,
But I would say I don't typically love the term MVP because it almost isn't always the most valuable player. It's the best player, which doesn't always translate as the most valuable. However, in Aaron Rodgers' case, I would say he is their most valuable player because without him, Green Bay are terrible. Whereas
yeah.
without Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City have won. So
Well,
they
not
have a
this year. They don't have the same backup quarterback as they've had in years past. We don't know what would happen. I do see what you're saying. That was my argument against Tom Brady for years, as we saw even Matt Castle go to the playoffs with, when Tom Brady tore his ACL against Kansas City in the first game of the season that year.
yeah.
But Dalvin Cook, I'm get him out of here. There's no way. Um, Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce being tied to those quarterbacks, it's a quarterback's trophy. And like you said, it's most valuable. And I think most valuable to their team, it's going to be one of those two guys, like in my opinion. If Travis Kelce goes out, Tyreek Hill is still there. They still have the running backs that they have that can catch the ball. They still have Robinson and Sammy Watkins. I just think they can still make plays if Travis Kelce was to go down. Devontae
Yeah.
Adams could go down. We've seen Aaron Rodgers be great without Devontae Adams. I just don't. I think it's got to be a quarterback this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's been a phenomenal year for offense, and so that obviously displays quarterbacks in a good way. And Aaron Rodgers, for me, has been the best of the bunch as far
Uh,
as consistency.
Dark horse could be Josh Allen if they make a push here late.
Yeah,
If he has a late push, just spectacular football. We've seen this. We've seen this award be won and lost in the last few weeks of the season before. Look at Carson Wentz, man. He essentially carried Philadelphia to the Super Bowl and tore his ACL, and Nick Foles got to come in and take the glory. But Carson Wentz was going to win the MVP that year.
yeah, no, I totally agree.
So we could see it go the other way this year, possibly with Josh Allen, but I think it'll be one of these two guys, Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree.
Who do you got as rookie of the year? A little bit more wide open, I think. Usually a quarterback's award as well, but and I think that it would have been uh,
Joe
shucks that
Burrow.
yeah, Joe Burrow. I think it would have been his to win if he hadn't destroyed his knee. Man, I hope he gets back. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
agree. He was playing some great football and consistently as well,
yeah,
with a dearth of talent. Like, I think everybody expected them to get pummeled week in, week out, and they were hanging in games against Pittsburgh and against better teams, and he
he
was
was
able
throwing
to
the
keep.
ball 60 times a game.
Yeah, and he was the reason they were staying in games. Honestly, if he'd have stayed healthy, he could have been an outside talk for the MVP itself. But now with the Rookie of the Year, I think, like you said, it's a much more open conversation. I think Justin Jefferson has put his hand up in a big way, especially the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, we got a few names here: Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson, James Robinson, and Chase Young. For me, it's Chase Young. Man, he just brings an element to that defense in Washington.
Yeah,
They're really good.
he will definitely win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that's a lock right now.
Yeah, 100%.
And actually, to your point, Washington's defense looked almost they're so far away from each other when he is on the field and when he's off the field. Those few games he missed earlier in the season,
Yeah,
he's just incredible. Yeah, he's a big piece. So I could see him winning. I don't know if has it ever happened before where they win both.
I'm not sure. I mean, somebody would have to, right?
Yeah.
Um, at some point, even if it was on the offensive side of the ball. Um, I,
No,
I don't
I sorry,
know.
I meant has anybody ever won Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year in the same year? I wonder if that's ever happened.
I'm not sure.
There's a good chance that it could happen this year.
The Colts have a good safety, Julian Blackman too, who's been a big part of our defense being great this year. I don't think he's. I think that's the only defender that could really give him a run for his money. But I'm with you. I think Chase Young has it on lockdown.
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, and he was expected to be great, which is even harder to deliver on that,
I
especially
think. I
in
think in
that team.
terms of rookie of the year, not defensive rookie of the year, but just overall, I think it's between him and Justin Herbert, just because the quarterback does get an opportunity to win that award a lot more often.
Yeah,
Um, I think that it would be between Chase Young and Justin Herbert, in my opinion. James Robinson has been great, but you just don't see the running backs win it very often.
yeah, which is a shame, but I agree with that. I think Justin Herbert's been a revelation as well, as far as the quarterback position even.
So you think Justin Herbert over Chase Young, or are you just
No,
unsure?
my vote would go to Chase Young.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. I think he's been unbelievable. So, and I mean, not just as a pass rusher, which is where everybody was looking at him in the draft, but man, as a run stuffer as well, he's a beast. He's
Yeah.
he's like Jadeveon Clowney when Jadeveon Clowney came into the league, except for he's living up to the hype.
Yes. Yeah, and he seems to have a much better attitude as well. Like he doesn't. I'm not going to say he's humble yet because it's too early to say, but he doesn't
Yeah.
seem to. He hasn't bought into his own hype yet, is what I guess I
Seems
mean.
like he has respect for the players around him too. He seemed genuinely upset, to see Joe Burrow because that was in that game when
Yeah, it
his
was. Yeah, yeah,
ACL was torn. He seemed genuinely upset. He played with the guy, at Ohio State briefly, and you could just tell he's got respect for the other guys on the field, and you like to see that. So,
yeah. Yep.
one last one here before we get into some playoff talk. Who do you got for the fantasy MVP this year?
Yeah. Okay. So we to decide this on we basically looked at ADP versus production. Essentially, is how we came up with our picks, if you like. So for me, you'll hear Josh's pick, and I like that one. But I went with Keenan Allen. His ADP was somewhere between late third, early fourth round.
Yep.
And outside of, I think he missed a game and a half, or no, sorry, it wasn't a game and a half. He just was sort of slept on because of the quarterback situation, which we kind of just touched on with Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor, and he does get a fair amount of disrespect, or he's just not a sexy pick as you put it off air.
Yep.
But he's been so consistent all season. Outside of the game he played this week against New England, and you know how New England are about taking away the best piece you have on offense. So, and he even had, I think he had 8 points in a game where they scored 0. So even that just shows you the kind of production he has week in, week out. So for me,
I was really blown away that New England handled them like that. I thought it was going to be a good game. I thought they were pretty evenly matched,
yeah,
and
I
New
certainly
England
didn't
stomped the mud
expect
on them.
a shutout, and I certainly didn't expect us to put up 45 points
Yeah,
away from home. So yeah, it was a it was a surprise, but a pleasant one. So,
you think
but
they're
like
going
I
to be
said,
in the market for a head coach? Chargers.
yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough, man. Like, there's been some very questionable decision making on his part, and I thought he was a good coach, uh, but he's been put to it this year, and he's not really handled everything well. So,
Right.
um, yeah, for me though, fantasy MVP, I've got James Robinson. He was free. I even didn't pick him up because I didn't believe that he was going to be that good. And it's not that I thought didn't think he was going to be that good as much as how often is Jacksonville going to be in scoring position. They're going to have to throw the
Yeah.
ball because they're going to be behind in games. Well, they showed me they're not going to throw the ball no matter what. They're just going to run even if they're down by 30 points. And so if you picked up James Robinson, you got you an RB1 for free. So congrats. He's the fantasy MVP. You should be in a good position to win your league if you drafted well. So
Yeah, because you probably at that point you may even have three RB1s potentially if you went RB heavy early on
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you didn't lose anybody.
Yeah, if you hit on and if you were in the middle to late first round, you really had the potential to hit on several players. And you might have been the Austin Eckler owner. If you did, if you were, then you had a guy to step right in. You had two good running backs, and now you've got Austin Eckler back, who is great.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're sitting pretty for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
he's been like you said, he was free. Most leagues he wasn't drafted unless you're in a super deep league or maybe a dynasty, he wasn't drafted.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. If you play in a league with James Robinson's mama, then maybe somebody drafted him. But unless you're playing with Miss Robinson, nobody drafted him.
Absolutely
So
not.
So, yeah, James Robinson MVP, Keenan Allen MVP. I think that's two great picks
Yeah.
uh, for the fantasy MVP. Last year, it was hands down Lamar Jackson. This year, I think it's been a little bit more wide open.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson for sure. Because the only other guy was probably Michael Thomas, and he was a first round pick, so he just paid out what you expected, really.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yep. All righty. Let's. So we're gonna move into some playoff tips, I suppose, is what you put there in the docket. So
Yeah, just talk about some stuff, that you're going to think about getting into the playoffs. Every year you're going to look at it. You're going to be tempted to do a few things different because, this is it. This is the tournament. You lose, you're out. You win, you move on, and the winner takes all the marbles and all that jazz.
yeah.
So, one of the things I think that gets asked the most is, are you always going to start your studs in the playoffs? Do you go with that line of thinking, or do you maybe look at matchups more, consider a few different things? Like, are you always going to start your studs?
I mean, for me, it depends on the depth I have in my team. So if I've and which a lot of that depends upon how I got to the playoffs. So if I was in a good spot, I probably added depth towards the end of the season, towards the trade deadline, so I can play matchups. If I was like scrambling for playoffs, I probably have sold my depth to try and get a few good pieces to make it in the first place. So I may have no choice. But if I have the option, I'm gonna look at. I always look at matchups if I can. You may not have like for example, David Montgomery is a piece I had a lot of shares in all season, and he's been a disappointment for most of the year. Not bad, but he's been a disappointment. And I look at his playoff schedule, and it is delicious. And he is finally breaking out, and he is scored. He was actually the RB1 this week,
You looked
so
really good.
yeah, he looked great. So it may have paid off for me. I've held on to him all season in three leagues, I think it is, or maybe even four, and the decision may have paid off for me.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
I'm a David Montgomery owner as well in the league of record. No playoffs for me, but I'm doing what I can to mess some stuff up for people. So
yeah, so I have one of the leagues. I have Chris Carson. Now I may start Montgomery over Carson, especially the next couple of weeks because he has a much more difficult schedule.
yep.
So, but where on the surface you would think Carson all day over Montgomery, but
Well, Pete Carroll has came out and said too he doesn't believe that Carson's 100% healthy. So I think there's a lot of factors there that would point you in that direction.
yeah,
I will tell you a brief little anecdote. In 2012, I went to the fantasy championship and I lost because I benched Jamal Charles against my beloved Colts. That was a mistake. So since then, I have generally. So when we say start your studs, Christian McCaffrey's playing, you're going to play him, in my opinion. You're not going to get cute. You're going to play him.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Back then, 2012, Jamal Charles was a top 3 running back. You don't play. You don't bench him like an idiot,
Yeah.
Josh. So, it is what it is. In my opinion, you start your studs, those top tier guys, you play them, you live with the consequences, and you move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, like Dalvin Cook. He has some tough matchups in the fantasy playoffs, Tampa Bay, Chicago, New Orleans.
You ain't
But
benching him.
it's Dalvin Cook. Yeah, you got to be crazy to bench him. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
Yep. You're right, sir. You got to be crazy. A freaking lunatic would only do something like that. Okay. All right. Do you believe in throwing a game in an effort to change the matchups? First round of the playoffs, you could throw a game and have an easier matchup potentially with this other team that you feel like is weaker and has tougher matchups. Do you believe in doing that? Do you think it's ethical? Is it all
Yeah,
bets are off? You're doing what you got to win.
it's funny because we talked about this a couple weeks ago because I had that scenario um, where in one of my leagues, if I finished second, I played probably the worst team, one of the worst teams in the league, but he had a very easy schedule and
Mm-hmm.
managed to limp his way in. But you raised a good point. You always want to be the alpha and you want to beat everybody. It doesn't matter what. So I decided that that's the best course of action. And yeah, so I mean, you make your own ethics, but I'm out to win every week. I want to come out with the best record, not just a championship. So
Yeah. Well, here's another part of it too. Is I feel like this year in particular, I feel like I've played in a lot of games where I felt like I had great matchups. I was playing against teams with bad matchups, and that I had the better players, and yet somehow I would lose the games. You don't want to do that in the playoffs and think, man, if I'd have played the other team, the team that I thought was going to be better, I would have won.
yeah,
Because then it's your fault. Your fate was in your hands at that point, rather than putting out the best team and saying, okay, let the
come beat
chips
me.
fall where they may.
Yeah, come beat me. Like that's what
Exactly.
I want to do at the end of it. I don't mind losing so much if I put out my best team and their team beat me. That's one thing.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
if you try and finesse it and then you end up getting that then I totally agree. You end up gonna curse yourself. So
Yeah, and it's on you. Like going back to always start your studs. If you don't play Dalvin Cook and Dalvin Cook blows up on your bench, you're kicking yourself a whole lot harder than if he throws a dud up and he's in your starting lineup.
yep,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. All right, moving on to this last little tip here. Real quick, did we say if it was ethical or not?
I personally don't think it is, but like I said, everybody makes their own ethics. So it's
Yeah.
on you. You got to live with it. You got to live with it at the end of the day. You got to
Yeah,
sleep.
yeah. I think if you're setting a lineup, there's always a chance you can win. So I don't think there's anything unethical about it. I personally wouldn't do it. You personally wouldn't do it, but I don't think there's anything unethical about it. You set a legal lineup. There's the chance that those players can score the points you need to win. So
Yeah, yeah. It's different if you just like field an empty team and all
yeah,
you
or
guys are on your
injured
bench.
players, any of that
Yeah,
garbage bye weeks, get that out of here. That's unethical,
yeah,
and it'll get you kicked out of my league.
yeah.
But
I agree.
moving on. All right. What types of factors would make you consider a change away from one of those studs or one of your reliable players during the fantasy playoffs? Like, what are you looking at when you're looking at not just matchups, but in particular games? So maybe the matchup's good, but this isn't. What do you look at?
Um, so outside of actual football, I would say it depends on the guy I'm playing against. So if I'm like a heavy favorite, I'm probably going to lean a little bit more conservative. But if
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking like I need to make some more bold picks, then I might look at the guy I think has a better ceiling that week, even if maybe Keenan Allen has a better floor. But I have Amari Cooper, and I think he has the chance to get 2 or 3 touchdowns, and so I'll roll him out instead.
Yeah, that is that's definitely a good tip. I'll also look at weather this time of year.
Yeah, weather for sure. Yeah,
Geez, weather in games, man, it's so important. And not just weather, but looking back at players' tendencies, how they play during the weather this time of year. Um, and on the flip side of that, a quarterback that's mobile, you can kind of take some of that weather out of it because they don't need to throw the ball 50 times to get those points. They can run the ball as well, so you may see more of the option and those types of cute quarterback draws, and you get points in that way. So um, and look too. So a lot of times, like sleeper shows you where the defense ranks against that particular position. Well, that might have changed over since the beginning of the season. This is, week 14, week
yeah.
13, 14, whatever. When you listen to this, that's changed since week 1, week 2, week 3. So those stats are still calculated in. I would look more in the last 3 to 4 weeks. How have they been playing? Have injuries affected what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball? Those
Yep.
things have changed it. So make sure you
Or
look close to home.
or on the flip side, getting healthy. Like a good example on defense at least is the Saints. We're missing a bunch of pieces on defense at the start of the season. They were a sieve. and now they're healthy. They're mobilized. They're doing really good, and they're one of the better defenses in the league right now. So
Yeah.
with a pretty good schedule in the playoffs. So just because you thought you played against the Saints or your guys played against the Saints early in the season and they whooped on, that doesn't mean they're going to do it again. So I agree. I think you need to be cognizant of the current trend versus the overall trend.
And try to get those biases from early in the season out of your head as well. I've been saying for weeks, Atlanta is not a defense to pick on anymore for fantasy. They've gotten better,
Yep.
and it seems to be that way. They've gotten a lot tougher against the run. They've gotten stronger
Yep.
against the pass. It's not a gimme when you play Atlanta now. So try to.
Yes, especially against the run. I totally agree. They were getting run all over earlier in the season, and they've really shorted up. So
Yep. Coaching change made a difference for them. And that's just an example. It's that way across the league. Things that looked one way early, they change. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your fantasy playoff matchups and your lineups when you're setting them. Try to keep those biases out of your head and just look at football.
yep, yeah, and good luck
Mm-hmm.
if you made it. If you made it to this week of the of fantasy football, then you've done well, and I think we're all blessed to be here. Honestly, it's been a crazy year, but at least we've had a year.
Yeah, true. Very true. So I think that's got us for the show. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah, it's good to be back. It was good to have a break there for a minute,
Yeah. We're
but it's good.
gonna get together and kind of discuss what we're gonna do after the fantasy playoffs start and when the fantasy football season's over. We may take a hiatus and then come back in and start prep work for you guys, working on your drafts and the off season. Maybe do some NFL draft talk. So,
Yeah, some talk about some non-fantasy football.
oh yeah, yeah. So,
Love it.
yeah, yeah.
All righty.
All right, yeah. So let's move on. We're gonna get off of here. We're gonna reboot and get ready for a show later in the week. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. That's Ian and I'm Josh. We're out of here.
Cheers.
Bye.